Ikkis is a movie made by Sriram Raghavan. This is Dharmendra, who has been the superstar of Indian cinema, who lived almost till 90 years. He just died recently, I think in the month of November and 2025 or December 2025. Um, but he was known as a He-Man of India, and including many of us, are huge fans of Dharmendra. This was his last movie, last on-screen appearance. So I think was already emotional. I remember crying buckets just seeing him on the screen for the first time in the theater, and absolutely, I love the character he played, and he's. I mean, we know him as He-Man, but with old age, I think people become a little fragile and they become more softer to look at, and he was he had that softness in him, and he was playing that character. So I was super emotional just looking at him, and I love the character that he played. um I love Sriram Raghavan movies. All of his movies I've loved. I don't think there is a single movie that didn't. Even Agent Vinod, which was supposedly his worst movie, was not a bad movie to me. But he has made some gems like Andhadhun, Badlapur, Johnny Gaddar, right? So, and even Ek Hasina Thi with Saif Ali Khan, Urmila Matondkar. It was a good revenge story. So, coming to this movie, you go to watch a war movie, you think it is going to be about people shouting at the top of their voice, being patriotic, doing everything for their country, right? And this movie is about a true story of a boy who gave his life for his country at the age of 21. That is why its name is Ikkis, right? Ikkis is the Hindi word for 21. And he died protecting his country. He refused to go leave his tank. He was responsible for a tank and refused to leave the tank. He kept fighting till the end and he ended up dying. Um, but that is just a part of the story, you know. But the other part of the story, which is also true, which is actually documented, is the story of his father, who's played by Dharmendra. And almost 30 years after the death of his son, he goes to Pakistan because India and Pakistan were one country before the partition, which happened in 1947. So there were many people who had to move from Pakistan to India. They just had to leave their house, um, you know, and they had to move to India. And the same thing happened to a lot of Indians who moved to Pakistan, right? And partition is something, especially people who were born pre-partition era. There are people who have so many emotions attached to the place they were born in, right? So Dharmendra plays one such character who goes for a college reunion to Lahore, which is in Pakistan, and he happens to go to the same. Um, I mean, he's hosted by the guy who is responsible for the death of his son, but he doesn't know that. Dharmendra doesn't know that, and that character is played by Jaideep Ahlawat, who's done all of the actors have done a phenomenal job. So he goes there, and so it's a journey movie. So there are two movies in one. One in which we see his son's journey from a college student to becoming a person in the army to going into the war, and we see how he fights in the war and a lot of other things. And then there's this journey movie where Dharmendra, the father of this son, goes to Pakistan. He visits Pakistan, he visits his old house, and he is on a journey with Jaideep Ahlawat, the person who killed his son. I mean, who's responsible for the death of his son. And I think the journey part of the story is the most beautiful part of the story for me, which touched me a lot. Of how people welcome him, and then there are people who are not welcoming. But someone says to him that I lost my leg in the war, to which Dharmendra says, I lost my son in the war. You know, and all of us have lost something, but we shouldn't hold on to that loss. We should move on. We should we should just accept the fact that this is something we could not do anything about, right? Countries fight with each other, and as people, we support our country. We have to support our country. The army, the people, the army, the navy, and all the people who fight for the country do their part, do their role. But you are also supposed to move on. You cannot hold on to it. Everyone is doing their own duty, right? So that is the message of the movie. It is not pro Pakistan. It is not pro peace. It is just about moving on and uh, looking at each other as human beings than as people belonging to a particular religion or to a particular country, right? And I think the most beautiful part of the movie is the climax when parallelly we see how the son is fighting for his country and giving up his life. And on the other hand, the father and the person who is responsible for the death of his son are at the same place, at the same location where his son died. And the father is holding no grudge against the person who killed his son. He's saying that, I understand you did your duty, and I'm proud of my son for doing his duty. Right. So it's a very beautiful movie with a very beautiful message. And as I said, I always already biased towards the movie because it has my favorite filmmaker, that's my favorite actor, and the person whose last movie it was. So I love that movie. I can keep going on about that movie, but Afreen, before we move on to the next movie, do you have anything to say with regards to this one? I can't hear you. I'm sorry. I don't know if it's your mic.
Right. I recently was listening to Actors Roundtable, and in that they said that when you make a politically incorrect movie, in the sense that you present a view and then you don't present the other side of the view, like a movie such as this about war should have both the views, for the war and against the war. So this movie does that. It kind of questions your perspective about heroes and villains. A soldier from Pakistan is a villain for us, but he's the hero for Pakistan. And the same goes for India, right? So, um, that same person in another situation may have saved an Indian's life. Like, let's say somebody was dying in a lake and that person is the only person around and he knows swimming, then he may have saved that person. So the person is not bad here. It's the situation, a war which is being fought. And so I think that's what they are trying to say. Like, I know this perspective and I've heard about it, but it's good to kind of like somebody who hasn't thought of war in that way, war and the soldiers that fight the war in that way. It's a good exposure to them. And it's nice to see Dharmender's last movie, I would say. It's so strange that Dharmender in his personal life, had two marriages and whatever, but we put that aside and we only have a good memory of him being a good person, a soft person, a nice person. You can get away with a lot of things if you are soft spoken, I guess. So
And
I wasn't.
to support him with regards to that, he never left either of his wives. He was
Yeah,
married to both of
so
them.
I don't support that, and I'm not. I
I mean,
don't
there are
think
people
it.
who leave their first wives to move
Thank
on
God
when they get married. So
they're not torturing
I
two
mean, yeah.
people.
Okay. Anyways, yeah.
Like I feel like a woman should not have a end all and be all. Like a man should not be the end all and be all for a woman. I think a woman
Hmm.
should have enough resources to lead their life as they want. Like if it was, let's say it was the same case for a woman marrying two men, like it has happened, but it's just so weird. Like I don't know. I think you may want to cut this portion off, but
No, that's
anyway.
okay.
So
Yeah.
it's again talking about perspective, right? Karthik is only focusing on one perspective of Dharmendra. The other perspective is totally gone, and I have that. Like I can't let go of that. So that's why I'm probably not as emotional as Karthik. But again, Like, we had a fight, me and Karthik once, and he was struggling to get a tear. He was like, एक आंसू नहीं आ रहा है तुम्हारे आंख से इतना आंसू आ रहा है. So like, I'm trying, it's not coming. But when he's really touched by something, like tears flow very, easily. So it's nice to see that somebody can feel for certain topics or certain people that
I
way.
get emotional in movies. I cry
Movies,
easily in
cricket,
movies, watching movies.
yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, that
Movies,
I
things that
feel
touch
that
your heart.
sometimes the sadness within me
Gets a
comes out,
release.
gets released when I'm watching a movie.
Yeah, yeah,
And I've seen that, sometimes I cry a little too much, and I understand that this is probably not the emotion that was triggered. This is an emotion that was triggered because of what I was watching, but it was within me, you know?
and
So,
sometimes it happens that a movie is like takes you to that peak, but then it doesn't like bring out the tears. You're sad, and you're like, "अरे यार आ जाता यार, like आ ही जाता रोना, आ क्यों नहीं रहा है?" So because we're not able to release our inner turmoil, so they are like, "अरे यार, it was almost there, but it never happened." Like, so that catharsis is what we are looking for sometimes in movies, and yeah. But I'm glad that sometimes I see Karthik letting go of his inhibitions and emotions, and he just like cries buckets of tears. I like that
I mean,
people.
recently, my mother was very sick and she was in the hospital. We didn't, I mean, it just kept getting serious and serious, and I didn't know if it's actually serious. Should I be worried or should I not be worried? I didn't cry a bit during that entire period, but I'm sure that there was a lot of sadness
Yeah.
within me, right?
Hmm.
But I think I was watching my own movie, uh, a movie that I'm making. I mean, is in post production right now, and I would cry at certain scenes and get emotional. So I have realized this about myself, that in real life, in situations where, I mean, even the last 6 years of my life, I'm sorry, we are digressing probably, but very quickly, I want to just touch base on the point. Last 6 years of my life, except for 25, I would say between 19 to 24, there have been many moments where I felt down and out, I felt no hopes. And 25, I will attribute this to the movie All We Imagine Is Light. I hope, because it made me realize that I can still make movies and I can still have a day job. I don't have to have either of it. So, and that was a big relief to me. But in those 6 years, there were many times when I have broken down from within, but I was not crying. I was not in tears. But these movies, or any situation which is emotional, they would make me cry, and I would realize that it is something inside me that's coming out. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's about the tears, and I think we really went deep into it. But yeah, I mean, this is the way we like our podcast to go. It has to be deep. It does not need to be about the movie. It does not need to be about a particular topic, right? But yeah, moving on. Anything else about Ikkis that you wanted to talk about before we move on
The
to?
actor Agastya Nanda, he's done well. He has
Yeah.
this innocence of the youth, like not
Mm.
arrogant. Like he's very confident. He's the leader of the pack. But then again, also like there is some innocence about him, which is great. Like he comes from Amitabh Bachchan's family, and how like it's just so natural, and it's nice to see a
The,
confident
yeah.
actor who still is able to retain his innocence. Like there is nothing arrogant about him, or there is nothing. Yeah, you get this feeling, right, of
Mm.
somebody not being
There is this rawness in
honest.
his performance, which
And his
works in this
persona,
movie.
yeah,
Yeah,
personality
yeah.
also.
And I think you liked the girl, right? I remember very
The
recently
girl
you
is
were.
beautiful. Yeah, I thought the girl is beautiful. I hope she works and she gets, because we need Bollywood needs more actors, newer actors. So I hope she gets more
Yeah.
work. Yeah.